Hey, my friend.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Oh, getting fancy up in
I'm
here.
getting fancied.
So what's up?
Oh, nothing, just doing the thing. Welcome, everybody.
Yes, it's another week of Case Files
With Kat.
and Ashley.
What?
Woo! So yeah, it's been a interesting week. I did watch the new Conjuring movie, and I will say I actually liked it because I have said before in the past I didn't like The Conjuring, but I did like the second one. So
I just don't understand that. I have not watched the third one. I can't wait. I'm so excited, but I've been on this binging of the TV show The Haunting. So it's kind of gotten me, and I'm like, oh, it's these 30-minute little freaky ass stories. I've been loving the getting scared, in 30-minute increments.
Well, that sounds very fun.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, now I have to go to sleep.
I actually, after I watched The Conjuring, I got really paranoid when I went to sleep. I thought my closet door was moving, so that's how I know it was like freaked me out a little bit. It was really good. Anyways,
can't wait.
I see you like just diving right into your beer over there. So what are you drinking?
I can't open it.
Oh no. Well, I'll talk about mine because I actually have one.
What?
And then when you get yours open, we'll just. So I'm actually drinking Blue Law from Legal Draft Beer Company.
I love Legal Draft.
Yeah. Woo! So it's their seasonal beer. It's blueberry wheat ale. If you are unfamiliar with Legal Draft, they were started about 15 years ago by a trial lawyer and his friend who is a medical professional. But what I like about them is that all of their beers have a legal name. Like their Hefeweizen is hung jury Hefeweizen, which I really enjoy that one. Again, this one's Blue Law. They've got a Accused Amber. They've got a bunch of IPAs. Anyways, but my favorite thing,
their IPAs are good.
Yeah, their beers are real good. On their website, they list their employees as the jury. However, they include Harley, which is the brew dog, and Barley, which is the brew cat. And they're both very cute, and they're included in the jury. So anyways, it's a very cute little brewery. Anyways, so this is a blueberry wheat ale. It says a refreshing American style wheat ale with blueberry for an amusing twist of aroma and flavor. And then it has the Miranda rights, which you have the right to drink great beer with flavor and character made locally and enjoyed with friends and family. Know your rights. So I'm a big fan of blueberry beers. I like the one by Galveston Bay, which is a blueberry blonde, and then blueberry boyfriend by Prairie. This is pretty good. It's more of a mild blueberry taste, so it's not too sweet or tart or overpowering. It's a really good beer, but it is.
Is it
seasonal,
dry for a heft? Because that seems like a.
It's not really like Hefeweizen style. It is more drier though. It's not very sweet. Yeah, but
I might like it.
Yeah, it's 5.5% alcohol. I don't know what the hoppiness level is, but it's a pretty good blueberry. I haven't had a blueberry wheat. I've only had the blonde. I don't think blueberry boyfriend is wheat, but it could be. Whatever. Anyways, it's a good, if you like blueberry beers, if you like seasonal beers, if you just want to try something different, it's pretty good. It's really good. Oh, yours has a mustache.
My can has mustache. My art is mustache. It is from our friends at Saloon Door. It's their double IPA, Say When. I went by there and picked some up. So we have been enjoying the world opening up a bit. And so we went back to our old ways of like meeting up after work because we can and stopped in at Saloon Door. But then we got an earful because we picked up the kids late at 5.
No one yells at me when I show up late with the dog. So
like
I can't.
It's 5 p.m., not 4 p.m. We got an hour. Yeah, so we got an earful. Like, oh, you were late. So yeah.
Oh, because I have mentioned many times about Untapped, I did post my Untapped username. and I created a private group for case files. So if you add me on Untapped and you message us on the page and say that's why you added me, I can add you to the little group on there, and then we can see each other's like reviews, beer activity, check-ins, stuff like that.
Yes, because we need some beer. We need to order some beers from across the land.
Yeah, I try to find BrewDog, anything other than the IPA, but I can only find the IPAs. So anyways, I'm drinking Blue Law. It's really good. So I have kind of a long story and some trivia. So are you ready to just like...
Let's just get into it.
All right. So the question of the week, I was going to ask something different, and then I saw this and I was like, what the fuck? I have to investigate. So the question is, what is your favorite random but true fact? And in the post, it's a soda machine from Capitol Hill. And I was like, this is my new random favorite fact. So if you want to answer first, you can. But then I have a whole story. My whole story is not about the soda machine, but like I have a little background about that.
Well, you already talked about talk about soda machine. Yeah. I'll think.
Okay, so apparently there was a mystery soda machine that was put on Capitol Hill that was in operation since the early 1990s, and until it disappeared in 2018. To this day, no one knows who stocked the machine, who put it there. A drink could be chosen using one of the mystery buttons, and it dispensed drinks that were kind of rare, like ones that are either not usually found here or ones that haven't been in circulation since like the 80s. And it was in front of a locksmithing business, but he claims he had no knowledge who operated it. And in June 2018, the machine like just mysteriously disappeared with a note taped to the railing where it was. It said, "Went for a walk." And apparently it's a very popular Facebook page. It has like over almost 27,000 likes on it. And since its time of disappearing, it's posted Photoshopped pictures of itself in different places around the world.
That's awesome.
Its last post was in October 2020. It said, "I was thinking about making my way home, but I'm not quite sure I want to be touched." So it's a real thing. It's my new favorite fact because I did not know about this soda machine, and its Facebook page is fantastic. I do follow it now.
Well, you need to share the Facebook page on our page.
Yeah,
so people can also follow it.
Mystery soda machine or whatever. But yeah.
That's really funny. I think... Mine's probably not that interesting, but one of the first things that came to my mind was Mexico has the smallest volcano in the world.
Oh, that is interesting.
And how big do you think it is?
I don't know how big normal volcanoes are.
I don't know. Like when you think of a volcano, don't you think of like this huge monstrosity?
Oh, yeah, like giant, but I just don't know how I would even... measure
but
it.
Like not like one that looks that's 43 feet high.
Is that little?
I mean, just a few of us, right?
Yeah, like that's really interesting. So where in Mexico?
So it's just outside of the city of Puebla, and Quexacomate is the name of the place. But yeah, so like, but it's this time, it looks like it was like a, like dirt. It just kind of ended up growing grass over it, that you see on the side of the road that, they didn't use the dirt for anything. So it kind of just grew grass like that. It doesn't, it doesn't look like much. I mean, it's a volcano.
Is it an active volcano?
Here, I'm going to show you
lava and stuff.
Hasn't like erupted or anything.
Well, I don't mean
it looks like I'm going to show you this picture. It's the hold on. So the like letters in front of it are so small.
Oh wow, it just looks so tiny when there's letters in front. It looks itty bitty.
It's like this. It looks like a mountain that's really far away, but it's really not.
Yeah,
it's like
with the letters,
the driveway.
It looks so little. Yeah.
It just, and you can see, and there's like a little railing on top. It's hard to see over the computer, but there's a little railing on top.
Cute. So adorable.
It's so little. And I was just like, oh, I mean, that's kind of what I thought of. Like, that's like a random, who thinks about little volcanoes?
Yeah, that's cool.
It apparently hasn't erupted. People can walk on it. So, I mean, I don't know. It's not, it's like dormant for a while.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the trivia.
Okay.
So in 1984, John and I think you say it Revy, I'm not sure, Walsh and other child advocates founded the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. According to the FBI in 2020, there was 365,348 NCIC entries, which is the FBI's like National Crime Information Center, where if you report a missing child to law enforcement, it has to go into this database.
Oh, okay.
So in 2019,
NCIC.
Yeah, in 2019, there was 421,394. So it did go down in 2020, at least as far as reports go. It went down. During the last 36 years that the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has been in operation, their toll-free hotline, which is 1-800-THE-LOST, should you need it, has received more than 5 million calls. They've assisted law enforcement in the recovery of 348,000 missing children and facilitated training for over 379,000 people. Their volunteers, which are called Team Hope, have provided 77,000 families of missing and exploited children with like emotional support and help. And then in 2020, it says that the NCMEC helped law enforcement with 29,800 cases of missing children. 91 were endangered runaways. 91% were endangered runaways. 5% were family abductions. 3% were critically missing young adults between 18 and 20. Less than 1% was non-family abductions. 1% was lost, injured, and otherwise missing. But of the nearly 26,500 runaways that were reported as actual runaways, 1 in 6 of those were victims of child sex trafficking in 2020. So that's just crazy.
Wait, so they ran away from their traffickers, or they were runaways from their parents?
They were
and
reported,
then they found out they were abducted.
They were reported as runaways, but it actually turned out that they were 6.
Oh.
Yeah. So the NCMEC participates in the Amber Alert program, and as a result, to date, that program has found and recovered 1,064 children. They also assist with cases of unidentified children remains, and to this date, they have identified 167 remains, and they're currently involved with 680 cases to try and help identify. And then finally, Team Adam, if you're familiar with the code Adam, I know like Walmart has it, some other places have it. It's what it does is it's rapid on-site assistance in cases of critically missing children. And that program was named after Adam Walsh, who was abducted and murdered. He was the son of the founders of
John
this, and he had been abducted and murdered. So when you get those Amber Alerts, everyone talks about how annoying they are, but like you don't ever know, like you might see the kid, like you have no idea, like no one thinks they're going to see an Amber Alert and then see the kid. You could save, a child's life. So try not to ignore those. Try not to ignore like the "Have you seen me" posters, because you just never know where a child might end up. So, anyways, that's my trivia.
Wow. I was watching The Servant. I think it's on Hulu. Does anyone else watch that? Ron Weasley from Harry Potter's in it. Anyway, really good. Good show. The first season's great, but one of the things that happens is an Amber Alert goes off and everybody at this party just looks at their phone and just like, And meanwhile, there's this little girl kind of walking around this party, and the hostess of the party's like, hi, starts talking to her and like, where's your mom? She's not here. And this cop comes in and is like, didn't you see the Amber Alert?
Oh, wow.
And everybody's like, well, yeah, but we just kind of, we don't look at it. We don't look at it.
And I think that's what everyone kind of does, but like after reading the trivia and like the story that I'm going to cover, I was like, oh man, I really have to start paying more attention to those.
Yeah, for sure.
In case you didn't gather, my story is about a missing child.
I did. I was going to guess.
Okay, you
didn't ask me, but I was going to guess.
I didn't ask you, but it's about a missing child. Okay. So it's actually about the first child ever on the "Have You Seen Me" posters.
Oh.
Yeah. So tonight's story focuses on a missing child case. It's still unsolved to this day, but it's been in the news as recent as last year. It's talking about Cherrie Mahan. She was born August 14th, 1976, and she was born in Saxonburg, Pennsylvania, to her mother named Janice. Now, Janice was only 16 at the time. She had been raped by a man. No one believed her. Her mother believed her, but like the police didn't really believe her. No one else really believed her. But she wanted the baby. She kept the baby, and she gave birth to Cherrie. And so Janice loved Cherrie. They were like always together. She was quoted as saying, "We grew up together. She was my whole life." Even her mother, Janice's mother, Shirley, was very attached to Cherrie. They both say that she was like the reason for living after her husband died in 1981. So like she had a very loving family. Like she grew up really good. And so Janice would later get married to a man named Leroy McKinney, and he adopted Cherrie as his own like daughter and took them in. And the family relocated in 1984 to a corn planter road in Butler County. And so they moved here because it was supposed to be like a really safe community, very little crime. Even to this day, there's very little crime there. It was just like a nice place for their family to go and kind of grow together. On February 22nd, 1985, Cherrie was really excited as her mother had intended to take her on this play date after school. So when she returned from school that day, like they were supposed to go on like this play date, and she was really excited.
And how old was she at this point? I'm sorry.
At this point, I think she's 8.
Okay.
This is 1985. She was born in 1976. So she's, I don't think her birthday come around 8 or 9. Yeah. So, anyway, so she accompanied her mother to the bus stop, which was only 50 feet from the base of the uphill driveway to their home. But unfortunately, that would be the last time her family ever saw her.
Oh my God.
So Cherrie was last seen getting off the bus on Corn Planter Road. So her bus dropped her off, and 3 of her friends also exited the bus at the stop and got into the car of Debbie Burke. Debbie was the mother of one of the girls. She had said it was approximately 4:10 when she picked the girls up, and had specifically waited to make sure that Cherrie, was okay, because there was a van that she said had been kind of following the bus, and it was like a company van. It had like a thing painted on it. Anyways, and it was parked off to the side or whatever. But she waited and watched Cherrie walk past the van and turn into her driveway. She wanted to make sure that no one like got out of the van, no one followed her, that Cherrie, didn't stop. So the van was described as a bluish green van. It had been parked near the bus stop. Debbie says she saw Cherrie walk past it and turn up her driveway, which was a 150-yard uphill driveway to her house. So the van was described as a 1970s era Dodge with a distinctive painting depicting a skier it was painted on the side. One of the troopers that was involved, and he's still currently involved. He's been on the case for the 35 years.
Wow.
His name is Trooper Long. And he stated that since the disappearance and through the years, there have been lots and lots of vans that meet this description. They've been looked at. They've been processed forensically. Yet none of them gave them any leads. It didn't go anywhere. There was no new evidence. There was nothing.
Well, they would have been painted by now and cleaned out by now.
Yeah, but like they're at the time though. Anytime. Yeah. So from that point on, anytime they saw a van that matched that description or anyone reported it or whatever, they immediately took it in. But the mother of Cherrie doesn't actually think. She felt at the time the van was just kind of like in the wrong place at the wrong, you know what I mean? It was just like parked there because it was at one of the neighbors' houses or something. Because, again, that mother watched Cherrie start walking up the driveway. So anyways, at the time she disappeared, she was 8 years old. So she hadn't actually turned 9 yet. She was wearing a gray coat, a blue denim skirt, white leotards, blue leg warmers, beige boots, and a Cabbage Patch earmuff. Leroy, the stepfather, had heard the bus stop near their home, and he was going to walk down to meet her. But Janice had said it was such a nice day outside, and it had been like snowing for a couple of days. It had been really cold. So they normally would drive down and pick her up so she wouldn't have to walk in the cold. But that day happened to be really nice outside, really warm. Her mom had a surprise for her. Like, she just wanted her, the one day they didn't go down and get her. Anyways, they said it was a nice day, let her walk on her own. But after about 10 minutes, they got really worried. They didn't hear her. They thought maybe she had been playing with friends. So Leroy went to look for her to make sure she was okay. He saw that she was nowhere to be found. He rushed back. There had been some snow on the ground that day still, and there were no footprints leading to the house. The only thing they saw was a set of tire impressions in the driveway, like in the soil. It was about 50 yards from the house. It wasn't the van. It didn't match a van. It was like car tires. I don't know how they determined that, but they did.
It would be the size of the tire because of, a van's tire might be thicker than a car. That'd be my guess.
Was
I know nothing about cars though, so don't listen.
So the police were contacted within the hour by Leroy and Janice. And when the police began their investigation, some of the children on the bus with Cherrie that day told the authorities that van had been trailing the bus. And Debbie remained adamant that she had waited to make sure that Cherrie made it past the van. She nor anyone else witnessed Cherrie enter or stop, or anyone there was no movement in the van, period, when the bus was there. And when they had gotten off the bus, the three girls that Debbie had picked up and Cherrie had kind of played for a little bit and talked. And so there was no one in the van at that time, according to Debbie. Like, no one was sitting in the driver's seat.
Hard to say for certain, but I mean, yes, I can see the argument for, and I can see the argument against. Yeah, for sure.
But she was saying, in addition to the van, witnesses also say there was a small blue car parked in the drive of one of the homes near the bus stop. It has never been confirmed if the car owner had anything to do with Cherrie's disappearance, because the car, much like the van, has never been located. The neighbors claim they don't know whose car that was in their driveway. So the car's never been found, van's never been found.
So they could be related, they could be totally unrelated, but either way, there's a car that is suspect and a van that is suspect.
Yeah. So officers were quick to respond to the call about Cherrie missing. They immediately began searching the whole area. Neighbors joined in. Search calls were made. Other neighbors, volunteer firefighters. Within 1 hour of her disappearance, there were hundreds of volunteers searching for her.
Wow.
They had bloodhounds on the ground.
Wow.
Helicopters in the air. I mean, within an hour, they had dogs, helicopters, volunteers. Investigators noted that there were some tire tracks off to one side of the road near Cherrie's driveway. Those are the ones I mentioned earlier. They did take photographs of them in the off chance that they were related to her disappearance. Due to the little bit of snow that was left, they did say there was no footprints, and so to them, they believe that she didn't walk she never actually started walking up her driveway, and so she either willingly got.
Cherrie said that she did.
Debbie said that she saw her turn to go up because it's an uphill driveway, 150-yard uphill driveway, and she turned to start walking up it. But what they're saying is that she either willingly got in someone's car after Debbie drove off, or someone forced her into a car. And the reason they said willingly is because Janice, her mother, was quoted saying, "Nobody was a stranger to her. Like, if you said her name, she thought you knew her. She didn't understand. So did someone know her? Somebody know her? Did somebody knock her on the head and drag her into a car? Did someone say, hey, your mom said we're here to pick you up?" There's so many things. Because she was just a friendly child, and she didn't understand the concept of no matter how much they tried to, explain to her.
Oh my God.
So the search for Cherrie continued through the weekend. Every inch of the surrounding farmland where she went missing was scrutinized. On Monday morning, state police announced that the entire area had been covered, and it was very obvious to them that Cherrie wasn't there. So at that point, they determined that it was kind of pointless to keep looking there. So the searches were called off. They believed that Cherrie had been taken and transported somewhere else. And so the investigators focused on trying to locate the van and the car. The blue van had been reported being seen near the bus stop, and none of the vans they searched to this day had any leads, like none. And they did go to paint shops and say, hey, did you have any vans here? Like, body shop, stuff like that, detailing places where like they would have taken it to get it clean. No one had a van like that. So it's pretty much like they left town as soon as they got her. So detectives were working as hard as they could to find Cherrie, but it wasn't an easy task. They had no physical evidence suggesting whether she was alive or dead. They were so desperately wanting to find this blue van, but even as they looked for it, they admitted that they had no idea if it was even related to her disappearance or not. And because of that, they didn't want to keep just hyper focusing on this van because it could have truly been a case of being at the wrong place. I'm just saying that's what they thought. They wanted to broaden what they were looking for just in case it had nothing to do with it. They didn't want to find out later on down the road that, okay, they spent all this time on the van, but the van had nothing to do with it. So
you have to, you have to follow every lead, but at a certain point, you got to allow for other things to come in and follow that too.
So the police published a description of the van and its very distinctive painted mural that was on the side and urged people to keep an eye out for it. Hundreds of sightings were called in. Detectives went through every vehicle registration records trying to narrow down a list of possibilities, but found that there were over 2,000 vans in that area alone matching the description of the one they were looking for. Detectives were discouraged to find that ski-themed murals were actually really common in the area that they lived in. And so it was also possible that the van they were looking for, like you had mentioned, had been repainted. It was basically looking, as they described, for a needle in a haystack. It was just impossible.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. So a month after Cherrie went missing, a 12-year-old girl in Spring Hill Township was waiting for the school bus when a man in a blue van pulled over and asked her if she wanted a ride to school. Luckily, her school bus came around the corner just a few seconds later, and the man drove off as soon as the bus came into view. She described the driver as being a heavyset white male around 30 years old with black hair, a beard, and a mustache. She wasn't sure what kind of van he had been driving, but it was an older model, and it had a decal of a dragon on the passenger side door. So the
police could have been painted over of a skier.
So at that point, the police immediately began searching for this van, but were also unable to locate it. So Spring Hill Township is a small town in Pennsylvania. It's on the Pennsylvania-Maryland border. It was about 90 miles from where Cherrie was kidnapped. So investigators considered that the possibility that this incident and Cherrie's disappearance were linked, but without more evidence, is it pure coincidence that it was a blue van? Who knows? But they didn't have any other evidence because the man drove off. There was no camera footage. They never found it. So at the time of Cherrie's disappearance, a national direct mail company named Advo Inc. had printed her photograph on postcards with the question, "Have you seen me?" So these were mailed to thousands of households across the United States. They were placed inside telephone and utility bills. And she was, in fact, like I mentioned, the first child to be on a "Have You Seen Me" poster that you see everywhere nowadays. So that flyer led to 3,000 calls about possible van sightings because the poster on one side had a drawing of it across 41 different states.
Wow.
Yeah. So
was this an independent company, or was this through the state, or
it was just an independent direct mail company? They had heard the story. They were concerned about it. They thought it was strange because it was such a small town with no crime. What happened to her? Someone has to know what happened to her. And so they used their direct mail abilities to send this out to everyone. So as far as suspects go, detectives knew there was a possibility that Cherrie had been abducted by someone she knew, which meant they had to interview all of her family, friends, neighbors. Everyone was considered a suspect in this case because it was a kind of a suspicious case. So according to Janice, Cherrie's biological father was a man living in a nearby Armstrong County. The man who wasn't identified denied the claim that Cherrie was his daughter. He denied that he raped Janice. He said whether he was her biological father or not, he was not involved in her life at all. He told detectives that he had only seen Cherrie once when she and her mother happened to attend a party that he was also attending. So since Cherrie was missing, there was no way to have a DNA test done to determine if he was the father or not. And according
there
to
is
that.
now.
Yeah, but back then, investigators weren't able to confirm or deny the paternity claim either way.
Okay.
So they couldn't prove he was or wasn't the father. Not that that was like a major turning point for this case, even if he had been. Anyways, there were some people who believed that the man who had gotten rid of Cherrie because he didn't want to be financially obligated to take care of her. But detectives said, A, he was never in her life, and Janice never once tried to take him to court or even asked him for child support. Like, she wanted nothing to do with him. So they ruled that out. So other than saying he was Cherrie's father, Janice had nothing to do with him, with the man. The detectives interviewed him rigorously, like over and over. They ruled him out as a suspect and that announced that he was not considered a person of interest anymore. Janice and Leroy, they were interviewed. They were interviewed a number of times by both state police and FBI agents. The detectives said they've been like very like. They were working with them. They had no inconsistencies in either of their statements. That was every time they were interviewed, it was the same thing. Like they never changed their story. Because they are the parents of a missing child, they remain persons of interest. They couldn't rule them out.
I was going to say, because I mean, that's because your statistics earlier.
Yeah.
They're mostly by people they know. I mean, just statistically, it's not stranger danger. It's people you know danger.
Yeah. And so in March, the FBI asked if they would submit to polygraph tests regarding the case, in which they both agreed. Each was the subject to an extensive 4-hour polygraph examination administered by the FBI. So once the tests were complete, it was announced that neither Leroy nor Janice had shown any signs of deception at all during these tests.
Wow.
So they pretty much cleared them as, people of interest, but still they're kind of on the list. But anyway, so the detectives expanded this investigation to friends and neighbors of Cherrie and her family. So they would eventually interview over 1,600 people. But even after interviewing 1,600 people, they were unable to come up with any solid suspects in the case. It was really frustrating for the investigators, and it was devastating for Cherrie's family. The entire community was on edge, and they wanted answers, because this is a town that has little crime. Nothing like this had happened, and they just didn't understand it. It's not like her family was rich and someone wanted a ransom. It wasn't like anyone had contacted the family. And
everyone else is wondering, is it going to happen to my kid?
Right. Well, and one of the teachers, and I was going to put this in there, but I didn't, but her teacher was saying that the kids in her class all felt so awful that they didn't do more when they were on the bus. Like, maybe they should have told the bus driver about the van trailing them, or, Debbie was like, well, I should have driven her up the driveway. And then like the kids in class were all very scared. Like, is that going to happen to me? Like, am I going to die? Is she dead? They were 8 years old, but they now had this fear because one of their classmates, was gone. And so it was very hard on the community. So the entire community was on edge. Janice and Leroy began isolating themselves from their friends, especially those who had children. Janice in particular carried a lot of guilt about what happened that day. She couldn't forgive herself for not being at the bus stop when Cherrie was dropped off. And she constantly thought how different things would have turned out if she had just been there. Because again, that was the one day of her entire life that she did not go get her.
I don't know that I could live with that what if.
But
do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I know my psyche, and I would probably drive myself insane with that. Yeah. What if? I probably wouldn't still be alive.
Well, and the thing is, like, to me, that's a signal that someone was watching her, because if they knew that was the one day her mother wasn't there, and that's
exactly right.
Because what kind of coincidence is that they're going to abduct a child and it just happens to be the one day no one else is around?
Not a coincidence.
And so, anyways, so Janice returned to her housekeeping job about 6 months after Cherrie went missing. She knew she needed to attempt to restore some normalcy in her life, but at that same time, she was really afraid to leave her house. She was so convinced that Cherrie would try to call when she wasn't there. And this is before there was like cell phones and like voicemail.
Wow.
And so she was very, very scared that she would try to call and she wouldn't be there again. So she went out and she bought an answering machine, and the greeting on this answering machine is fucking heartbreaking. So it says, "Cherrie, I love you. Read me the phone number off of the phone that you're calling from, or call the operator and ask her to get you in touch with the National Center for Missing Children in Washington. They will bring you home to me." And so that was the recording she left on her answering machine. And it's rough. So as the years passed, Cherrie's case remained unsolved, even with tips coming in on a routine basis. Under Pennsylvania law, a person can be declared dead by a judge after they've been missing for 7 years. And it was a reality that Cherrie's mom had never been prepared to accept. And it wasn't until her daughter had been gone for more than 13 years that her family went through with this process of having her declared dead. But it's because Cherrie had broken her arm in a car accident a few months before she disappeared. And she had been rewarded a settlement of $3,500. And Janice had wanted that money to go into a trust fund in case Cherrie had ever returned. And once Cherrie was declared dead, Janice put the money into a trust fund for the brother that she never got to meet. So Janice and Leroy had a son 4 years after Cherrie disappeared. And so that money went towards his college fund, and the reward fund that the community had collected for Cherrie's return, like in the early days of it, where they were still optimistic that she might come back. Janice felt too guilty about it, and she didn't want to profit off that. She didn't want to keep it. She didn't want anything to do with it. So it had grown to over $50,000, and she donated the whole thing to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So that's where the money went. So over the years, there are still moments of hope for Janice. A woman recently contacted the nursing home where she works now and claimed to be Cherrie. The police assigned to the case used photos of the family, took fingerprints, but ultimately it was discovered that this was just a cruel trick and this woman was not Cherrie. And Janice's only reaction was, there are very mean people out there that just try to get in the story, I guess. So for Janice, that was really heartbreaking because she got her hope up. She was real, she thought in her mind, in the back of her mind, she knew it was unlikely, but at the same time, you want your kid back. So, and then the reason it came back up in the news recently is because there was a handwritten letter that Janice received. It was brutally specific about Cherrie's killing and where she was buried. She turned it into the police, and the police followed up on it and even got the FBI involved again. So the police and the FBI and cadaver dogs and Janice, they all went out to this property. Janice wanted to be there because in case they did find her or they found her remains, she wanted to be there. And so they permitted that. The dogs searched the entire property twice over. That was in this letter. Did not find a single thing, nothing. And so, it was, again, kind of determined that this was probably just a hoax, someone just being fucked up. So the next part I'm going to read is straight from a newspaper article that was printed in the Pittsburgh newspaper. It was an article on the whole situation. And it says, the pain of the unknown has been hard to handle from the start. In the early years, Janice turned to drugs to dull the pain and sold everything she had just to get another high because the pain was killing me. It was just killing me. She thought about suicide and even tried to jump out of the passenger door of her truck. Only Leroy's strength had grabbed her and kept her in the car and prevented her from jumping out. And she said, I was going to jump out because the car behind us was going to squish me like a bug, and I didn't care, she says, because the only thing that I cared about was taken from me, and I didn't care what happened to me. Because just as a reminder, like, Janice had Cherrie when she was like 16, and it was like her whole life. Like, this is the only person she had in her life, that she cared about. Like, she cared about her husband and she cared about her son, but like, Cherrie was her first child. Like, what really got her through life,
out of like out of a brutal situation too. I mean, a rape, the child of a rape. Those generally aren't kept or loved like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to generalize. It's not true, but that's hard. You're looking at a kid that was a product of like a violent crime, but she found so much love in her.
No one believed you either.
Right.
So, but a couple of years after Cherrie disappeared, Janice shook herself out of her spiral of self-destruction, and she learned what she hopes others will take to heart, which is the power of forgiveness. She said, without forgiveness, I was eating myself alive. So she reached deep in her faith and found a way to forgive whoever was involved in the disappearance. She said, that's what gave me peace in my life, to forgive someone that I didn't know because I was killing myself. She said, even harder, she says, she had to find a way to forgive her own mother's guilt. She says, because I wasn't there that day. I wasn't there. Up until that day, I was there every day to pick her up after school, every single day. And that day, I was not there for her. She says, and believe me, any parent who has dealt with an accident, that guilt can kill you. So that day that Cherrie disappeared, Janice had actually taken off from work. And the surprise that she had for her was like, Cherrie had this Build-A-Bear that got damaged. And so Janice had taken the day off of work to go to Build-A-Bear while Cherrie was at school and replace it. So she had it waiting for her when she walked in the door. And that's another reason she wanted her to walk up and be surprised and, walk into it and all that kind of stuff. So, again, the day Cherrie disappeared, Janice had taken the day off from work. And instead of picking her up on the way home, she was waiting, letting her walk up herself. So now on her shoulder and near her heart, Janice carries tattoos to remind her of Cherrie every day. And every day she prays for the relief of that call from the police just to know what happened. She said, that would be a blessing to me if they would just call me and just say, it's over. It's finally over. So Janice McKinney now so she's been holding on to hope for 35 years that someone will have like this sudden sense of conscience and just come forward and tell the police what they need. There's still tips that roll in. Like I said, that letter was only, recently, and even in 2020, they were getting tips. They haven't given up. The police on the case are still on the case. It's a very dear and important case to them. So they don't want to give up that hope. So they continuously put out like age progression images of Cherrie, what she might look like today. People have called in with tips saying that they've seen her in different places, that they think it's her. But again, they can't ever, verify it. So in all actuality, she probably was taken somewhere and murdered. But anyway, so that's my story on Cherrie. If you're listening to the story and for whatever reason, when you see the pictures or you listen to the story and you think you know something, the case is still open. It's with the State Police of Butler, and I'll post the phone number. There's a phone number that you can call in with any tips if you feel like you may know something that you never know. Things have come from America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries and stuff. So you never know where someone will hear something and know. So that's my story of Cherrie. Again, she was the first Have You Seen Me? And since then, it's expanded to like milk cartons and flyers. So if you're ever out and you see those flyers, please pay attention, because you don't know, like, you might be saving a child, you might be helping a mother who's feeling that kind of guilt,
So
that's my story.
You hear me sniffling this whole time,
I'm
just
so
been
sorry.
crying this whole time.
It was very, I cut out so much of the story because there was so much other heartbreaking quotes from her. And like when her teacher was talking about the kids in the class and like their fear of immortality now, and like just the community and everything, like it was so sad and so heartbreaking. And so I just tried to stick to the facts of the case, and not the emotional part, because it's just really like, I can't imagine. I'm not even a mother, and I can't imagine if the one day I didn't go get my child was the one day something happened to them. Like, I just cannot imagine. I would have died. I would have died right away. I mean, I like, as soon as they told me they couldn't find her, I don't know how long I would have lasted. So, I
mean, I'm telling you, and I think I've said this to Jason several times, and I probably have said it on this show a million times. I don't know how any of us, not you, but any of us 70s kids, how we survived, and I think back, gosh, 1985, I have a very clear memory of that. And I remember being a kid that, my mom or my dad didn't pick me up from school or from the bus stop. And we were really close. So we would all kind of, as a couple of street neighbors, would walk to school. We'd walk through a field, and it wasn't a very, what's the word? I guess developed is the word. The word a lot. Yeah. It wasn't developed. There was a lot of the subdivision that was just fields, because all of it hadn't been built on yet. It's very different now where that is. It's very built up, lots of buildings, lots of businesses, lots of homes. And man, I'm definitely lucky to be alive. And I don't think I was ever taught stranger danger. I think that I just had it. I think I just knew. But at the same time, like, man, if somebody I'm just thinking, that makes me look at my kids now and go, am I teaching them what they need to know to kind of survive? Because we let them walk, I would say, a half a block. Yeah. Which I think was about the amount of time that, what's his name? Jacob.
Oh, I know. Come on. Mm-hmm.
I think he was on his street when he was taken by an older kid right. And so it's like, we do the whole thing. We walk out and we watch them, and we can almost see them get there. They have their little watches on so that we can track them. And we do the whole, like, we're not helicopter parents, but in comparatively to my generation, yes, we are helicopter parents.
When I was a kid, my grandparents raised me, and they would both work until 5 or 6, and I was just told, lock the door, don't answer it for anybody, no stranger.
Latchkey, kid.
I didn't take the bus. I actually walked home to and from school, and we would walk through wooded areas. And there was a big, like backwoods. I mean, there was a subdivision, but we would walk through the woods parts of it. And I'm talking probably like a mile or two at least.
Wow.
And, and like there would be homeless people who lived in there, but not saying that all homeless people are bad, but we were little kids. We didn't know. Like, I was in in elementary school, I rode the bus, but in middle school, I wanted that independence, and I walked back and forth, and no one was ever home until later in the evening because they had to work. And so, we didn't have cell phones, and we would stay out until dark and everything. So, it's definitely a different time. I mean, obviously kidnappings and stuff definitely happened back then, but like, oh my God, when I think about like all of the dangerous situations that we got into.
We were in, yeah.
And then today, you can't leave your kid anywhere.
You can't, but people, I mean, based on your statistics, there are still kids going missing. And so is there a demographic of kids that's happening to? Is it's not, is it suburban kids? Is it happening to suburban kids? Or is this really because in suburbia, that's where sex trafficking is happening? Because I mean, I'm working with that population, so I know that they're coming from families that aren't necessarily.
Yeah, and the biggest
they're not poor.
That they're not taken by strangers. They're taken by people that they know. Like
they're taken by people that they know.
That they trust. So you're teaching your kids stranger danger, and then the whole time the people you need to be worried about are the ones that know them. And it's just crazy. And when I see these stories about parents who've killed their children, or like the recent story that's in the news about, the little boy that they found at the motel or whatever, it's just, it's disgusting and it's heartbreaking. And like, how can no one in the family report a missing child for months? The last time he had been heard from was April 30th. Like, I just don't understand. I don't understand it. I don't get it. And that was someone he knew. So, I don't know. I don't know the statistics breakdown. Yeah. The father was involved.
100. I mean, yes. Did you watch the interviews with her? Ugh, yes.
No, I can't.
This is a whole new story. Oh my God. You just want to punch her.
But that's what I'm saying. Like,
let me at her.
There's children are disappearing of all races, all ages. And it's just so sad because it's so often their parents or someone that they love, someone that they trust, like they will willingly go with, and they have just no idea.
It is it's almost never a stranger. And just like if I died in a crazy freak way, Jason would be the number one suspect. Yeah. No matter what. He would be the number one. Not because there's ever been a history of violence, but because a stranger isn't normally the person that's going to commit to that sort of awful act. So, I mean, so I see why the parents are still being kept as suspects, because it's not completely closed. But man, my heart goes out to her. She's a stronger woman.
She is very strong to be able, like, I forgive whoever. I'm, I guess she has to pull it together for her son, because she did have the son 4 years later. So I guess
4 years later, I wouldn't have made it to that.
I know that's what I'm saying. But like the fact that she did make it to 4 years later, and the fact that she has a son is probably a reason why she had to like try and like, get this faith back and try to be positive, because you can't just, treat the son like a side thing,
No, I know, but I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have made it to child number 2. So all the props to her. Please look at the pictures. If there's anything that strikes any of you, to share the story. It's a very important story. Thank you, Ashley. Can we read the question of the week answer?
Yes, go ahead.
God damn, that was a really heavy story.
I'm sorry.
That strikes like that mother's guilt. Like I feel that. I know that.
The one reason I want to do it again is because I do know that everyone just kind of like dismisses the Amber Alert and doesn't even look at it. I can't even tell you what the last Amber Alert I got yesterday said. And so like,
wow,
it's a reinforcement that you need to pay attention, because, anyways, go on, answer the question.
And we need to redo the Have You Seen Me's, I think. Okay. So Noelle says, wow, the fact that Lego, and I sound so stuffy now in my brain. Okay. I do. I don't know what I sound like to you guys, but wow, I've just been crying all this time. The fact that Lego produced 318 million tires in 2011, making them the world's largest tire manufacturer by number of units produced.
Why did Lego produce tires? I want to know.
I didn't know that either. Well, I mean, they do. That's part of their bits. The part of the Lego, their Lego bits.
Like car tires.
They did do car tires.
Very interesting.
She says, or the fact that you eat someone else's boogers, it helps your immune system grow.
Okay, I think I'll skip on that one.
I am going to skip that. So RC says, in 1922, when Danish physicist Niels Bohr won the Nobel Prize, the Carlsberg Brewery in Copenhagen, Denmark, decided to give him a house. But it wasn't just any house. It was located right next to the brewery and had a pipe that brought beer directly into the residence. And that's how you win question of the week, ladies and gentlemen.
That's the lifestyle that I want to have, where a brewery just puts an express lane into my house.
So Jesse says, origins and history of chiropractic. The word chiropractic comes from the Greek words chair, meaning hand. I am not pronouncing this right, Jesse. I apologize. And praktos, so chire, I guess, hand, and praktos, meaning done, i.e. done by hand.
Oh.
So that's, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Chair, it looks like chair, but okay. So your super cute doggy star says, to answer the question. So Dev says, my new one is what Olivia told me today, that spiders have not blue blood. I think it's clear blood. That's what Olivia told me. I thought she said clear.
That's what she told Deb. No, she told Deb clear blood.
No, it says blue.
Oh, she must have edited it because earlier it said clear.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So apparently, yeah. So so Olivia told me clear. Dev, they're saying it's blue. I'm not sure, but that's terrifying. And so
it is very terrifying that your daughter knows facts about spiders. I'll be honest.
Well, we probably learned this in school. We just don't remember it. It's like,
I love anything out to do with spiders.
Bloop, 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 bloop. Right? It's, yeah. It's horrible. Horrible. Like, I don't remember anything. And I'm like, really? Is that true? Let me look that up. But when she told me I hate spiders, she's like, you want to hear something? Yeah, it's terrifying. So, yeah. So that is, those are the answers to the question of the week.
I thought there was another one. Is there not another one on the one with Dev?
Let me see.
With Star, it was two earlier.
With Star? No.
She was very like, answer the damn question.
Let me see. Answer the... Oh, there is. It's one hidden. Bethany says it's impossible to not close your eyes while you sneeze. Try it. Impossible.
Oh. Well, those
I'm not going to try it.
I love random facts, so that's why I love it. I love it.
So now you know so much. Spiders have clear blood or maybe blue blood, and the smallest volcano is in Mexico.
Yes, and there's a
near
mystery
Puebla.
soda machine out there somewhere traveling, living a better life than all of us.
That they might. Are you sure it's photoshopped in there? Because it might be actually traveling.
It may
the
be
world.
actually
That would be
traveling.
hysterical.
I don't know. I didn't investigate like the photos too closely. I love the Facebook. I'll post the Facebook though.
Post it. I love that.
So,
I need another beer.
Yeah. So, again, I mentioned on tap, but also on our Instagram, I posted about, we went to Urban South, and so I posted about Urban South. I took some pictures, did some review on the stouts that they got. I'll have one about City Orchard coming up because it's in the same shopping center as Urban South. So most of the reviews will be on Instagram and Untapped should anyone care and want to read them and follow us. So
one day we're going to go on a brewery tour.
I go on a brewery tour every weekend. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but like across the country. Not all these Texas breweries,
Yeah.
I want to try the Pennsylvania beer and we've gotten Illinois beer. We've tried out Ohio brew dog.
I will find a cider one day from them.
You can order it online.
I will have to try that again. I only saw the IPAs when I looked.
Oh no, you can do it.
Okay.
Go to the link that Glenn posted. Oh, happy belated birthday, Glenn! It was just his birthday this last week. Yay!
So now that no one is still listening, thank you all for listening. If you've made it this far, and we love each of you and appreciate you. If you could share us with your friends, like us, review us, engage with us on Facebook, send us messages. We're on all the things: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We really don't, because all we do is talk about murder. So.
We love you guys. We'll see you next week. Until then, be safe and be kind to one another. Bye.